Welcome to 15 with Christine. Brian Greener, business advisor and owner at Hiregen Solutions, is our special guest today. So let's get started. On 15 with Christine, we talk about all things business growth. But before we dive in, I want to let you know where you can find the broadcast. I'll come to you live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Hit the subscribe button and you won't miss an episode. My goal with 15 with Christine is to introduce you to people who can help you grow your business. And I'm looking forward to the conversation with Brian because he specifically helps business owners grow through that component specifically related to people. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Happy Friday.
Brian, first, I'd like to ask you to share with our listeners just about your story, because you have an interesting journey to starting Hiregen Solutions. So tell us where you started.
Well, early in my career, I started in the staffing and recruiting industry. So that kind of led me on an interesting journey to start with.
Yes.
I don't know how familiar you are with the staffing industry, but I was a salesperson. So I would go out in the field and I'd visit businesses, knocking on doors. But because we were supplying employees for them, they'd bring me in and show me how their business operated. And it was like going on a school field trip several times a day. So I got to see a lot of different businesses in a lot of different ways. And I worked with businesses both big and small. And I got to see a lot of contrast there. The bigger companies and the successful companies, they kind of operated a little differently. And with my smaller businesses and business owners, they had these gaps, and so we'd help them find people and we'd help them recruit. But, if they didn't have the right systems in place or they didn't know what to do with those high performing employees, they'd lose them. And so I kind of saw that there was always these gaps that, these people. So I started to make the pivot from staffing and recruiting to full consulting so I could focus on the entire health of the business. They would call me into meetings and I would be helping them with their planning and I'd be helping them with things that really didn't have much to do with staffing anymore. And so little by little, I didn't realize I was doing consulting at first, but little by little, they kind of drugged me along the way and turned me into a consultant. So like I said, made the pivot to go full time. And I like working with the whole company instead of just one area, if that makes sense.
So let's take a minute and tell us, at that point where you made the decision to go out on your own, to jump into entrepreneurship, how did you get to the point where you made that decision? That you were like, you know what, I am going to make this work. I'm going to jump from working for someone else to working for myself. How'd you come to that conclusion and make the jump?
Well, I have to go a little ways back for that one. I grew up with a grandfather that had his own business. It was a canvas business. And so I grew up with him. And by the time I was 4, I was kind of his sidekick. So I'd go and pull canvas and I learned how to run the sewing machine. But he kind of taught me how a small business runs. And turns out it was kind of fun. So I learned that work was fun, and so I got to the point where by the time I was 8, I was responsible for all the trampoline repairs. By the time I was 12, I did my first lawn mowing business and started it. And I had the neighborhood kids coming and working for me mowing lawns. And I'd go around the neighborhood asking for mostly old ladies to ask if we could mow their lawn. And anyways, so it was kind of always in my blood. I went into corporate America and I got some of that experience. But prior to Hiregen, I actually started a recruiting firm, headhunting firm, and had 8 recruiters that worked for me. And again, even then, I kept being drug into the other parts of the business to help them because we might be able to find them a real high performing employee, but then they wouldn't have the stuff that they needed to, provide an environment that person could thrive. So again, it was kind of a natural evolution. But as far as going out on my own and hanging a shingle, that's kind of been in my blood from an early age.
That's exciting. Any tips for others who are looking at making that decision, whether it's being prepared financially, whether it's being prepared mentally to make that jump?
Well, let's see if how do I say this? The first thing you do if you're going to sit down and start a business is sit down and write it out. Figure
Yes.
out what your plan is going to look like. How are you going to make money? Write out what you're going to do. The nice thing about doing that is you get to kind of see it on paper before you actually go start and spend money and try to make a living. Figure
Right.
out how much money you have to make. And if you're going to make a living, you can calculate the numbers on paper and kind of figure out how much you have to make. But try to figure out how you can actually make a living, how many units of your or whatever your offering is that you need to sell to be able to be successful in that business. And
Exactly.
go get some business. Go ask people if they'd buy your service. Don't just say, hey, is this a good idea? Because everyone
Right.
will say it's a good idea. They're nice and polite. But go and say, okay, well, will you sign in? Will you agree to buy from me so I can go
Yes.
start this business? But if you do that, then you can get yourself in a place where you can start pretty good and get going. And
That was an excellent and succinct way to give people advice on how to get started. So I'd like to connect the dots because your clients clearly they pay you to deliver solutions and
yeah,
they are happy with the results. So I'd like to take a look. You've mentioned turnover a number of times.
oh, turnover's
What
fun.
do you do specifically to help your clients so that because you saw that gap, you're helping
Uh-huh.
them recruit and hire great people, but you
Mhm.
saw them losing those people. What are some examples of when you come in and consult with an organization, how do you help them deal with that? And what are some of the other problems you help them deal with so they can thrive and grow?
That is a great question. It's also pretty topical because everyone's feeling that pain right now, hiring and keeping people.
Right.
Again, I'm pretty biased in the way I approach consulting because I started in the staffing and recruiting. I started in
Right.
human capital. So that's near and dear my heart. To me, again, if you look at the entire health of the business, that contributes to retention.
Yes.
It's a whole cycle. So, for instance, if you've got good job descriptions and people know what their jobs are, well, they're going to do better. If they do
Right.
better, well, then they're going to stick around longer. If you're more successful, then you'll be able to provide more perks for your employees. You'll be able to give them a
Right.
better environment. If you want good employees and you want to attract them long before you post an ad, you've got to have a reputation for this is a good place to go work.
That's right.
If you want to be a premier employer, it starts with that first. Do you have good leadership? Do you have people that people would want to follow into battle? That would want to come and
Right.
work there for 20 years. So if you start there first, then things like your recruiting strategy starts to fall in line. Because now you're looking for the people that kind of want to come join your club. They want to be a part of
Yeah.
what you're doing. So from there, retention it's kind of the same stuff we all know. Be nice to them, treat them well, clear expectations, things like that.
Yes.
But the biggest thing I would say is hold on to the good ones you have. You know, avoid having to recruit heavily because of an emergency. If you need a position filled, it means you should have started 7 months ago. To make sure that position wasn't empty. It's kind of that ongoing process. But yeah, again, this is why the whole health of the business, if you've got a good strategy, well, everyone knows what direction they're going. If you've got a good business model, everyone knows what jobs they're doing. They know what they're expected to do. If you've got good policies and procedures for employees, the employees are happy. Well, if that's good and everything's fitting together, well, the business is successful. If the business is successful, well, gosh, you can pay people better. You can give them more perks. You can make it a
Yes.
nicer place. You can get the lounge bar and, for the employees.
So let me know if I'm reflecting this correctly. You help our organizations get to the point where when they're bringing in those top performers, they have a culture and they have a strategic approach to develop them so that when recruiters call in the future, they don't want to talk to them because they're happy where they are. They're thriving in every way. For those who are watching and listening, if I were to ask you, what would one of your best clients say about working with you, even down to a detailed level of here's where they were before they worked with you and here's where they are now? How can you help people kind of see the picture in their mind of what you actually do?
Well, that's a good one too, because boy, sometimes it's kind of hard to articulate what we do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you
Understood.
I'll tell you what some of my customers have told me directly. I hear, and these
Fantastic.
are things that I hear quite common. I hear customers will tell me I'm a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
That they can talk openly with me. Again, oftentimes there's conversations you can't have with everybody. And
Right.
so having someone to talk to that understands business and that you can speak openly and frankly to, for instance,
Right.
some business plans you can't share openly with everyone until it's all done because you might freak people out, you might scare
Right.
people. If
Right.
you've had an emergency or something bad happen, and pretty soon everyone wants to run for the hills. Well, that's bad. So sometimes you got to have private conversations with good advisors that can help direct you. The big thing I try to do as far as an accomplishment or try to the results that I'm trying to get is I want them to fall and rediscover the love for their business because it's fun to run.
Right.
That's one of the results that I love. My clients, when I'm working with them, they're these business owners. They've got to be bold. They got to have courage. They got to be a little crazy, a little glutton for punishment. But that person is a unique individual, and if they can be in love with their business, and I can help fill in the gaps so that they know what they do, and we just get a structure together so it's actually fun and easy to manage. So it's
Yes.
not unruly. It's not grinding them into dust. So what we start with is the areas that are most important. We figure out where
Yes.
their pain points are, what's causing them some pain or what's been struggle. Because
Right.
oftentimes these are people that are really good at what they do, but you
Of course,
start
they
getting a little
wouldn't have
bigger.
started a successful business if they didn't, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So most of the people who come to us, they're looking to pivot. The pivot might be that they're looking to grow. It might be that they're looking to expand. It might be that, oh gosh, we had a bad rough time and we need to contract. They might need to change their strategy. The bottom line is the status quo has become unacceptable. They're looking to change. They're doing something, and we help them break through some of those barriers that they've not been able to break through. For instance, if you're a startup, the things that you have to do to get to proof of concept and get to profitability are going to
Yeah.
be different things than what it takes to go national.
Yep.
And so, taking the magic that made you profitable already, that spark that got you to where you're making money, and keeping the magic, but then blowing it up to a big organization with a lot of complexity and not losing that magic, that's a bit of a challenge. That's where we come in. Try to help them with those gaps, help them navigate the waters they're not as familiar with.
Mhm. So, Brian, when you look at your client base, I mean, do your clients work with you for a couple of months, couple of years? How does that relationship typically play out for you?
I do have some clients that have that have had like a short-term problem. They had something they needed
Sure.
some triage. Hey, I've got a flat tire kind of thing. I need something fixed.
Right.
But most of our client retention is very high, and
And
part of that,
why is that?
pardon me,
Why is that?
that's a good question. So we take a lot of pride in that. First of all, that we
Yes.
take that very seriously. Kind of like what I was saying before about retention with employees. Well,
Yes.
number one is we the services we provide, we tend to exceed those expectations. We understand. Our clients stay with us for years. I mean, we have some clients that, for instance, when I transitioned from my recruiting business to consulting, I had
Mhm.
many clients that came with me, in that regard. Since we started Hiregen, we have clients that from day one have been with us since. Now, their needs have changed over time, and
Right.
they've gotten to a point where, okay, they got this problem solved, so they want to go to the next level. And so we help them
Right.
get to that next level. And the nice thing about that is because we work so closely with our clients, we know the ins and outs of their business. So as it gets time to grow, the decisions are easier to see what's right for them, because again, every business owner is a little different. Every business is a little different.
Right.
Some might have more cash reserves and be able to do things that another company may not. We focus on what's the best approach based on the resources that you have at your fingertips and your skill sets, your human capital, the people that you have.
Right.
And we take that and we tailor it to them. And so as they grow, we keep tailoring what things we can do to help fan that flame and keep that momentum going. And my favorite thing is to see that momentum going and see that you're moving through the steps and they start to, and you start seeing the progress. And again, the favorite part is when they start rediscovering that love and passion for their business. Because when it's
Yes.
done right, it's a ton of fun.
It is. It is. Well, Brian, if someone is listening and they're serious about growth or expansion, or maybe they're in that startup mode and yeah, they've started making money, but they know they've got to do some things differently to keep that growing. One of the best places to reach you and learn more about you is at hiregensolutions.com
Mhm.
or greener at hiregensolutions.com. Did I get that right?
Both of those are
with
right. Yeah.
Hiregen Inc. Before we wrap up, are there any specific industries that you really enjoy working with because of the results you get?
Oh, that's a hard one. I love business. Again,
Yes.
that to me is kind of my art, and so it's hard for me to narrow that down. I've got a pretty wide variety of clients in my portfolio.
Yes.
I will say that the things I look for are people that are passionate about what they're doing,
Yes.
that are really looking to grow and are looking to kind of grow themselves, not just, that they're looking to
Yes.
become that person that has the bigger company. But as far as industry, that's a hard one for me.
I love that, but they're people that want to become the person that has that bigger company.
Hmm.
And I heard you say a number of times about, systems and making it easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're one of those people, you might want to learn more about what Brian does. Appreciate you guys listening in. Brian, thanks so much for coming in for the conversation.
Thanks for having
And
me.
yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another 15 with Christine. Until